Hi, I'm Will Bruin, and I was just recognized as a Seattle Sounders legend. Now I get to do voice reads for the Sounder at Heart podcast network.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners! The Sounders rule the region! Seattle Sounders is campeón! All creatures great and small.
Rothrock going to collect it. He does just about. Runs into the advertising awning. Low to our left. Ball goes in. Oh, what a cross! And what a goal!
Where's my copy?
I got a bunch of them in the car. I'll get you some.
You're handing them out for free already.
How many
cost on them?
$50.
I'll Venmo you.
This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest. Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes, part of the Sounder Heart Podcast Network, sponsored by Full Pool Wines and our subscribers. We're recording on Monday, April 27th, 2026. I'm your host, Jeremiah Shan. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Aaron Campo, and our engineer, Lickett. The Sounders have officially tied their record for best ever start to the season, beating FC Dallas 2-1 on Saturday to improve to 6-1-1 on the season. Their 19 points is the same number they had through 8 games in 2012 and one more than they had during 2021 when they actually started with 13 straight unbeaten. Like St. Louis, though, this wasn't necessarily a dominant performance, but it was plenty effective. Aaron, what do you make of this start, this game, all of it?
I think, pretty enthusiastic about things last week, and I'm even more so this week. The Sounders beat a pretty good Dallas team, I thought, pretty comfortably without Christian, who is a guy who it used to be, if he's not in the lineup, well, we're going to get fewer points than we probably would have otherwise, right? And I didn't think it was a particularly close game. And in addition to Christian, they were missing Albert Rusnak. And, I thought the attack looked dangerous, looked good, looked consistently pretty effective. I thought that, Dallas had the one really good goal off the set piece, but that was pretty much it for them. That was about all they created. I thought that, the Sounders just, it's a professional performance. It's not, they didn't blow anybody's doors off. They didn't blow anybody out of the water, but they controlled the game for the vast majority of it. When they went up 2-0, that really felt like that was it. And even after Dallas got the goal back, it just never really felt close. And, that's the kind of win where when you're not at full strength, that teams that aren't elite have trouble closing out. And the Sounders didn't really seem to have a lot of trouble closing it out. And that's just kind of been a consistent thing this year. They get a lead, they don't let go of it. They are very professional in how they close out games. And I think you've got to feel great about it. It's one of the best starts I think that we've seen, as you pointed out. But even in 2012, I don't think they ever looked this consistently good. They weren't winning a bunch of games on the road. This has been unique, I think, in that sense that, they got to this point with a really road heavy schedule. And yeah, I feel really great about it. I mean, there's still plenty of season left, plenty of time for them to slide and their form to turn south. But I just am not super worried about that right now based on what we've seen, because it's been consistently all season, next man up. We're going to figure out a way to win. We're going to figure out a way to be effective. We're going to adapt to who we have on the pitch, and we're going to get points. And I just don't see any reason to think that they're not going to be able to continue doing that.
Yeah, and they missed a penalty in this one on top of that. Like, they could have made things
a really bad
little
penalty too, I have to say.
Yeah. Jesus admitted that he was more frustrated with his decision-making process, because it sounds like he had intended to go left, which I guess is the way he normally goes, and he sort of overthought it, did not make good contact, hit it to the right, and it was really a pretty easy save. Certainly, the fact that he guessed right is, a big part of it, but he sort of telegraphed it. It was not a good penalty. And there's certainly, you don't have to go that far back. I mean, last year, the Sounders seemed to find ways to blow games exactly like this. I think of the LA Galaxy game at home where they were up 2-0. They seemingly were coasting, and then they ended up settling for a 2-2 draw. And one thing that they've done this year is they've gotten early goals for the most part. And just like you said, they just sort of put games away. They don't have, the underlying numbers, I think, are maybe influenced a lot by that they are just not playing from behind. They're not even playing from an even game state that much this year. And so it just doesn't lend itself to a lot of progressive attacking play when you are not having to stretch yourself and you're not having to expose yourself. And so the underlying numbers, whether it's G plus or XG or whatever, they just don't look that robust, in part because they're not having to just sort of fire off shots or push the ball or do whatever, because they're in advantageous positions basically every game. You look at their schedule, they've got 2 losses across all competitions. The RSL game, they gave up a relatively early goal. But even the Tigres game, they didn't give up that first goal until the end of the first half, or a second half, right? And then and basically every other game they've scored relatively early and been able to just kind of put the game away. Like I said, it's been very impressive. This has been a very professional sort of performance. There's not been a lot of nerves in terms of them having to chase games.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing. Parker Smith was a great Blue Sky follow. Had a little couple posts today about game state and the amount of time teams spend in a winning game state. And the Sounders have been right up there. They've spent 10% of all available minutes losing this year. And that's pretty impressive, right? Chicago and LAFC are the only 2 teams ahead of them. And that's, like you said, it's much more comfortable when you don't have to chase games. It's much more comfortable when you have a lead that you can sit on, especially when you have the defensive organization that this team has. You get the midfield performances that this team has gotten this year. It is going to lend itself, frankly, to some games that are not super exciting down the stretch. But when you're winning, it's always going to be a little more fun when you're just kind of closing out games by keeping the ball and being professional. And I think everybody wants to see the Sounders put up a ton of goals. But I think in a game like this, where they were missing Christian Roldan, and where Dallas had shown the ability to seize the moment and get a goal, that just kind of seeing things out was the right call.
Yeah, and they had, they created some decent chances in this one that they didn't convert. There was the Kalani Kosarienzi one off the rebound from close range where their goalkeeper made a pretty good save. Then they had Danny Masovsky got himself into a decent position for a close range header. He didn't really, it didn't take it a miraculous save or anything, but it was a good scoring chance. There was the penalty. They had some other opportunities to add a goal. So it wasn't like they weren't doing anything. It just, like I said, they didn't have to. And, I think a lot of credit should go to the midfield of Hassani Dotson and Snyder Burnell. Neither one of these guys were, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. They could both potentially be starters, but neither one of them are both seemingly paired more naturally with Christian Roldan. And they didn't seem to miss him at all. I thought this was Hassani Dotson's best game of the season. It was his first league start in a while, or is that right? Did he start last game too? No, he didn't, because Christian did. But he was good. I thought he has the play that sort of unlocks the second goal, where he, first of all, he plays a back header to Jackson Reagan to sort of keep possession. And then it's his pass that opens it up for Snyder Burnell, who of course plays in Jordan Morris. And I think there's been a lot of criticism, mostly fair, I think, of Dotson, that he just hasn't looked entirely comfortable. But in this game, I thought he looked really good, I thought.
Yeah, he looked great. He did start against St. Louis City.
Oh, okay.
But He played 53 minutes in that one. Yeah, I thought he looked great. I thought this was easily his best game. I think really since coming back from injury, he's looked pretty solid.
Yeah.
But this was easily far and away his best game, and that's good to see, right? They committed a decent amount of money to Hassani. He is. You need good performances from somebody that's on that kind of cap number, and it was good to see that. And I think especially in a season where Snyder Brunell is really broken out, where Christian has continued to look like one of the best midfielders in MLS. It's going to be tough when you're not getting the minutes maybe you expected to get if you're Hassani Dotson. Like, I think he figured he was going to be a starter on this team, and that hasn't really been the case. So when he gets the opportunity,
Although mainly because of injury, I would argue.
For sure, but I do think Snyder Brunell has probably won that job.
I would agree too. I would agree. I totally agree.
And so I think that's got to be a lot of pressure. When you have when you do get those starts, right? You want to have a good showing, and I thought he did. He picked up an assist. He looked really confident, really calm. I thought defensively was really good, and that's been my biggest issue with him. Is so far this season he's had some shaky moments defensively, and I didn't really see too much of that in this game. So that's great because there are going to be plenty of minutes for him this year, and you want to be able to trust everybody that's going to be getting those minutes. And I think that performances like this one go a long way to erasing the slower start. And I think it's so tough for any player coming into a new team, especially coming into a team with such high expectations, and especially coming into a team where there is so much competition, right, for those minutes, and there's such a high standard set internally by the coaching staff and the players. And also, that's a really tough position to play if you're not super familiar with your teammates. And I think that's kind of gets overlooked sometimes. So I don't think him having kind of a slow start is super unexpected, but it's certainly a good sign that he's picked it up his last few games.
The one issue defensively seems to be with the Sounders is corner kicks. They gave up the one goal they gave up. This one was on a corner kick. That's the third corner kick goal they've allowed this year. 3 of their 8 goals, in fact, across all competitions have been off corners. I'm inclined to give them a little bit of a pass on this one, though.
Yeah.
Dotson is marking Norris, and he's all over him. I mean, it's a really good header. Yeah. There's not like much you can really do there other than maybe have someone positioned at the back post, I suppose, is maybe the way you would defend that. But it's one of those things where it definitely feeds the narrative of they're struggling on corner kicks. But I don't know if it's entirely fair to chalk this one up the way that the ones against Tigres were.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I thought that Nolan Norris was even in a losing effort, arguably the best player on the pitch, certainly the best player for Dallas. I thought
Dallas for sure.
He was incredible. I thought I was super impressed by him. And yeah, I mean, he just flat out bullied Hassani, and he's a big kid. I don't think there's any shame in that, but if you find him and he's got a mismatch like that, and whoever is taking the corner finds him, if he puts it on frame, it's going to be tough to stop him from scoring. And yeah, I'm with you. There wasn't a missed assignment. There wasn't somebody left unmarked. It was just Nolan Norris being a big dude and getting his head to it. And you've kind of got to tip your cap to him.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that one. I also thought this was a good performance for Jesus Ferreira. He has been looking better the last couple games. He had taken 5 shots which was more in his previous 2 games. He had taken a combined 5 shots, which was 2 more than he had all season up to that point. And he gets his first goal. It's not necessarily a great goal, but it's the kind of goal he needed to just get. Like he gets played in by Jordan Morris. He takes it and it deflects off a defender. Nothing to complain about there. Obviously, I'd like him to do a little bit better with the penalty. But aside from that, he was dealing. Again, he just is doing this on a consistent basis where he is finding his teammates and he is passing very well. His confidence seems to be growing, which does seem to kind of go counter to the penalty that he took. But I'm liking Jesus Ferreira right now. I don't necessarily... I've heard it suggested that maybe the Sounders are more dynamic when he's playing at the 10. I don't know that the evidence fully supports that, but I do like him. I like him on the field, and I was very happy to see him get a goal in this one.
Yeah, I think that this was arguably his best performance as a Sounder. I thought he was, if Nolan Norris wasn't the best player on the pitch, I think Jesus Ferreira probably was.
Could be.
He was very good, effective in every phase. I think he was still running extremely hard, pressing really high in the 90th minute, which I was really encouraged by, because that's kind of been the question this season with him, is he's not playing 90 minutes. And is there a reason why? Is he not fit enough? Is he dealing with some kind of injury? And I think seeing the effort he was putting in late in this game makes me think that that's probably not the case anymore, if it ever was. So that was encouraging. And I think that, I said a few weeks ago that as happy as I had been with his performances, I really wanted to see him be more goal dangerous. And he's been significantly more goal dangerous over the last few weeks. He got the goal in this one, but he's just been getting into better spots in the box and getting into better scoring positions. And if you do that consistently, you're going to score goals. And I think that that's the thing that takes him from being a good player to the kind of player I think the Sounders need him to be. And if he keeps playing like this, it is going to make an interesting situation for Brian Schmetzer to have to work through, because he has been more effective, I think, than Albert Rusnak as a 10 this year. The sample size of Albert Rusnak being a better 10 is much larger, right? So you can't just totally, especially since Albert has been dealing with injuries this year. But it's hard to mess with what's working, especially when it's working as well as Jesus playing at the 10 has been working of late.
At the same time, let's not forget Albert Rusnak was coming off 2 games where he had 2 goals,
for sure,
or 2 goals and 3 assists. So it's not like he's, he was starting to heat up too. So I'm not quite ready to throw Albert Rusnak out with the bathwater, so to speak. But one of the things I do think that is worth wondering about, if not who should be playing the 10, is who should be the starting center back next to Jackson Reagan, because Yamar has been out now for quite some time, and Alex Roldan looks so comfortable back there, and Kalani Kosarienzi looks so good at right back. I still think Yamar is probably the better option, but it's really becoming an open question as to who should be starting next to Jackson Reagan.
I guess I think I'm less, and not because he hasn't been very good. I think he has been very good, but I think I'm less enthusiastic about the proposition of Alex moving to center back. I think that he's one of the best right backs in the league, and I don't think he's one of the best center backs in the league. I think he's very good. He's been great.
That's fair.
I do think that at a certain point we're going to see teams try to target him in other ways, and so it'll be interesting to see how he does there, how he adjusts to that. Having Reagan being the other center back means that the size you're giving up there compared to Yamar is not as big of a deal, but it is a factor. But I think he's such a good right back, and Kalani is great. I love Kalani. He's a really good player with a great future, but I think Alex is a better right back, and so I'm less sold on it being a long-term thing. But for the time being, I think Tino Lopez has been great. I've loved watching him. I think I'd rather see Alex there until Yamar is back healthy, and who knows when that's going to be. Like it could very well be a moot point that Yamar never gets the chance to win his job back because he's out for so long.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't
think his career is over or anything.
Right, but I would expect him back within a few weeks, I think.
It would be nice.
It would be nice. And hopefully he's back to stay. But the fact that Sounders have been playing as well as they have been, while really playing with 1 or 2 natural center backs on the roster, like healthy center backs on the roster, is pretty remarkable.
Yeah,
they did.
Incredible.
I was a little surprised that they didn't have Kim Keehee on the roster in this one. They didn't have they loaned Stu Hawkins to Tacoma Defiance. He played 45 minutes, by the way. Ryan Saylor's still not ready to come back. So once again, the Sounders are going pretty shallow at center back, and it doesn't seem to be costing them at all. Like they actually seem to be just finding more players that can put in a solid shift. And that is just it's just I continue to be blown away at how easy they're making it look.
Yeah.
Like center back is not an easy position, and they now have, 7 guys or whatever that can play the position very ably.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And I don't mean to take anything away from the organization at large, from the rest of the coaching staff, from the coaching staff of the Defiance Academy coaches. They're all doing an incredible job. But this season so far is making me want to figure out some way to give Brian Schmetzer some kind of eternal life pill, because I don't think that it's an accident that this keeps happening. That guys that, Alex was almost out of soccer, right? And Brian finds a way to turn him into one of the best right backs in MLS. Peter Kingston was almost out of soccer, and he's a contributor on one of the best teams in the league right now. Like this, it keeps happening, and I don't think it's any accident. And I do think that it is Paul Rothrock, right? Jackson Reagan. I mean, Jackson Reagan wasn't almost out of soccer, but he was a guy that the Fire were happy to let go for almost nothing.
Osaze De Rosario was someone who was freely available to be signed by Tacoma Defiance.
Yeah.
You can kind of go down the list here and find a lot of players who seemingly did not have a lot of options, and the Sounders have helped make them into very competent, in some ways, almost elite level players. And it does, like, I don't know. It's funny because I really would like to see them sign. Like, this is going to be the drum that we're beating probably forever. I want to see him sign somebody, but I also get why they look at the roster and go, okay, but where? I mean, you can argue that they could upgrade at the number 9. I think you can certainly make that argument. But Jordan Morris, look, if he's playing like he did against FC Dallas,
right?
Is replacing him going to be a high priority? I don't think so.
No. Yeah. And yes, you could potentially move him to the wing, but then you're displacing Paul Rothrock or Jesus Ferreira, right?
Right.
Or Albert Snack potentially, I guess, or whoever, right? Like it.
Right.
And that's not to say that I don't think the Sounders should try to improve, because even if the guy that's getting displaced by the new signing hasn't done anything to deserve losing his minutes, the point of all of this is to win trophies. And if you can improve your team and have a better chance at winning a trophy, you should do it. But it does make finding that guy harder, because it has to be somebody that's a clear upgrade, and you don't have like a place to focus that energy, right? Like, it's not like you can sit here and say left wing is our weakest spot, we got to go get a left winger. Because I don't know where the weakness is, right? Like, I can't look at this team on any given day and say that's the position.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah, it is. It would be, I think, a more interesting discussion if we could say, here are some guys we should go sign because they would help make the team better. But I'm not going to do that for all 11 positions. You know what I mean?
I think that on the same token, like, Nuhu was the captain in this game.
Yeah.
And, I think we've been open with criticism of Nuhu. I don't know that I have anything negative to say about Nuhu this year. Like, he's made some mistakes, but he's been overall a very good defender this year.
Yeah.
And it's just another example of a player who Brian seems to have coaxed the best out of. And
I would say has really dialed in on how to use most effectively this year tactically.
Right.
Like, he is not being asked to do the things that he is not, as much as he loves to do them, is not as good at doing as nearly as much, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything else from this game, from the Dallas game, that stood out to you? It was just sort of it honestly struck me as the kind of win where you take it, there's not a lot to take away. I mean, Dallas did rotate heavily. I think they may have rotated almost their whole lineup from the midweek. They didn't have Peter Musa. They didn't have Logan Farrington. So they were missing some stuff. I still thought they looked
two guys
good.
We spent all of last week's segment about FC Dallas talking about. Yeah,
exactly. But they played midweek, and I guess they picked up injuries, and that's how that goes. This, I guess we can come back. We can talk a little bit about Sporting Kansas City, but talk about a mess.
Yeah.
That is a mess.
Yeah.
And this by all rights, the Sounders should keep pace with 2012 in terms of points, because they won their 9th game in 2012, so they'll have to win that one if this is something that you care about. But I guess one thing that's worth talking about is the Sounders, like I said, are tied for their best ever start. They are on something like 2.3 points per game for the season right now.
They are at
2.38.
Yeah.
2.38 points per game.
Yeah.
So that would be a record-breaking pace if they were to maintain it for the whole year.
Of course, they're still fourth overall in their pace of the year.
No, they're 4th in the West.
Well, they're 3rd in the
5th.
West points per game pace.
Oh, pace.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But yeah,
so,
fourth overall in pace and 5th overall.
And so I guess
points.
the question, and I get that, like we said earlier in the show, their underlying numbers don't jump off the page. I think I would hesitate to say that they've been lucky, because I don't look at any of these games and say, oh, they were lucky.
San Jose
was maybe a little lucky, but even then they had a goal wiped off that they could have won that game 2-0, and they had a goal wiped off the board for a offside that may or may not have actually impacted the play. And they're the only team to have beaten both Vancouver and San Jose. I think there's a lot of reasons to think that they are better than their underlying numbers, even if they're not quite as good as their top line numbers. But it's at the same time, it's just hard to get too, like, I get why the Sounders aren't getting more hype from the sort of national press, because there's just undeniably better stories right now than them. San Jose, Vancouver, to name 2, but Nashville is still alive in Champions Cup.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really interesting teams right now.
Looks good.
Chicago looks good.
Yeah.
So there's not. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't really mind going under the radar right now. I think that maybe is working to the Sounders' favor.
Yeah, it's totally fine with me. And frankly, like, as you said, like, the Earthquakes are a more interesting story. Like, no question. This is a team that wasn't very good last year, that lost 2 of their best players, who looks to be legitimately one of the best teams in MLS history.
Yeah.
And it's through 10 games now, right? Like,
they're off to the fastest start in MLS history.
Yeah.
They have the most points through 10 games as anyone in MLS history.
Yeah, it's crazy. The Whitecaps are trying to save soccer in Vancouver. And and the Sounders have been good, but in a way that's, like, not super exciting. I think that, and I think this is a point I wanted to make about the underlying numbers as well. I think the more home games they play and the more that schedule discrepancy normalizes, the underlying numbers are going to start to come up a little bit, and maybe they start to be a little more interesting. But they've gotten a lot of these points grinding out wins on the road, and that's just not that interesting. So, but yeah, I'm fine with, nobody talking about us. We'll do plenty of that. We're used to talking about ourselves quite a bit, so no problems
exactly.
there.
Exactly. Well, the Sounders do have, they dropped in the strength of schedule rankings a little bit. They are now 6th toughest schedule up to this point, but then upcoming they're like basically mid-table. So they could be better days. Like the toughest part of their schedule seems to be behind them, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But why don't we take a break and we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit about Sporting Kansas City. You're listening to Nos Audietes on the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network. Sounder at Heart has been around in one form or another since 2009. In 2026, though, we make a pretty significant evolution when we go analog. Yes, that's right. In the year of our Lord 2026, we are publishing a real-life magazine. We're calling this thing 4, as in Sounder at Heart 4.0, but we're stylizing it as IV because we absolutely love Roman numeral. And if you want to refer to it as IV, that's cool too. The first issue has a comic book style cover that was hand-drawn by local artist Kevin Newber. Features features by Tim Foss, Susie Rance, and Charlie Boehm, a statistical deep dive by Kat Bush, a Q&A with Brian Schmetzer, a column by G. Willow Wilson, and photographs by Noah Reif, Max Aquino, Mike Russell, and Jane Dershowitz. I could not possibly be more proud of the work everyone put into making this, and I think you're going to absolutely love it. If you'd like to get your hands on one of these limited edition copies, we're currently selling them for $15 on our website. Get yours now. Nos Audietes, admittedly, is not exactly known for our spicy takes, but that doesn't mean we want our food to be mild. Spice up your life with Hacks and Ferments. Handcrafted in Georgetown and made with the best local ingredients from across the Pacific Northwest, they specialize in unique small batch fermented hot sauces and vinegars. Hacks and Ferments brings bold flavors and natural fermentation together for something truly special. Whether you're a heat seeker or just looking to elevate your cooking, you'll find something you love at hacksandferments.com. That's HAXANFERMENTS.com. And right now, if you use the code SOUNDERATHEART, that's all one word, at checkout, you will get a free hot sauce with your order. Again, go to hacksandferments.com, use the code SOUNDERATHEART at checkout for a free hot sauce with your order. Hacks and Ferments is a proud sponsor of the Sounder at Heart podcast network. Welcome back to Nos Audietes on the Sounder at Heart podcast network. So before we get into Sporting Kansas City, I just wanted to remind everyone that we are currently taking pre-orders on the latest issue of 4, the Sounder at Heart magazine. This issue is going to be focused on the World Cup and specifically Seattle's role in the World Cup. We've got a story, the main story is probably a look back at the failed 1994 World Cup bid. We've got a story from Garth Logaway is actually writing an essay for us. Leander Schallerkins, I think is how you say his name, also has a guest column for us. We have a bit about the Rave Foundation's efforts to build 52 fields, and we have profiles on all 7 teams that are supposed to be playing here. A lot of good stuff. I think if you like the first issue, you will be very happy with the second issue. This will most likely be the last issue that we do this year, though. It's been a lot of work, and I think we'll probably just come back to do one at the beginning of next year. But if you want to get in on the pre-order is $10, and just go to Sounder at Heart. You'll find links on Sounder at Heart to purchase it. And then the pre-order is going until May 1st, and then after that, we're going to have to finalize our order, and then we'll be charging $15 for each copy after that. So hopefully you want to support print media, you want to support Sounder at Heart. It's been a lot of fun putting this together. Look, it's already laying it out, and it looks great. There's some wonderful cover art that I think people will like as well. So with all that said, Aaron, Sporting Kansas City is the Sounders are heading to play Sporting Kansas City on the road. This is a team that is in a very, very bad way right now.
Yeah. One of the worst MLS teams in history so far, it looks like.
Yeah.
One win away at the Galaxy, as I think you said.
Yeah.
And nothing else to endorse the season at all. Really bad. Lost their last. Let's see. So in the
They've
month
actually
of
been
April,
worse at home, if you can believe it, than they have been on the road.
Yeah. In the month of April, they have lost in MLS play. They've lost 4 games by a combined score of 14-2. Now, they did, to be fair, they did also play a USL team, Colorado Springs, in the Open Cup, and they lost that one 3-0. So
3-0 to, I don't know the last time that I'm curious when the last time a MLS team lost to a USL championship team in the round of 32 by 3 goals.
Yeah, it's probably been a while, I would guess. So yeah, pretty bad. They also, the last game in March, they lost 4-1. So in all competitions, their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 games, they have been outscored 21-3, I think.
Oof.
That's
all
pretty
on
bad.
The heels of the Galaxy win.
Right. And only 2 of those games have been at home, to be fair. But
fair enough.
They lost those 2 by a combined score of 7-2. So Yeah, really, really historically bad team. I think last week we were talking about how there are a lot of very good teams in MLS this year and a lot of very bad teams, that maybe the era of parity is over. Maybe this was just a conversation we had in the Discord. I don't know. But I think that that's true, right? If you look at the table right now, there's some historically good teams. As we said, the Sounders are off to one of the best starts in club history, and they're 5th overall in the table. And then there are a lot of teams with really bad records, and Sporting KC is the worst of those. They're awful, and I'm sure some people will say that we're jinxing it by talking about them this way, but we're just reporting the news here. Like they
Just reporting the news.
They've been real dog shit, and yeah, I don't see any reason to think that the Sounders should not expect to get everything from this game.
Yeah, so Sporting Kansas City is last in the league in expected goals. They are, let's see, I think they are last in the league in, yes, they have allowed the most expected goals. They have given up the second most goals. So they're thank you to Orlando for keeping them from being at the bottom of that particular part of the table. And they have scored the fewest goals. It is there is nothing really to hang your hat on if you are Sporting Kansas City right now. And this is a team, there was just a story, I think it ran in The Athletic, I want to say. And they talked about how, Peter Vermees did a lot right during his time there, but he was sort of holding it together with toothpaste and bubblegum, because they did not have a scouting staff to speak of. They didn't have I guess they didn't really have an analytics staff anymore to speak of. And so when David Lee, their new GM, came in this offseason, he was looking at a pretty bare cupboard. And, he didn't exactly cover himself in glory by stocking the roster. And Rafael Vicky has not exactly covered himself in glory in his coaching, but they were sort of working from a deficit to begin with, and it seems to have only gotten worse. Now, I suppose the best case you could say is that they've avoided locking themselves into a bunch of new bad contracts. But in the meantime, the Sounders get to play this road game while they're in just utterly shambolic shape. Now, it should be said, I'm sure a lot of people are going to point out, well, the Sounders also were the first team to lose to Sporting Kansas City in whatever year that was, 2023, I want to say, when Kansas City got off to that awful start. But that was a team where the underlying numbers were a little better than their results had been. And they also had been missing a bunch of key components who all happened to be coming back when they played the Sounders. So look, this is MLS. Anything can happen, but this is absolutely a game that the Sounders should win.
Yeah, I think it's completely reasonable to go into this game expecting to win, and especially with the way the Sounders have played on the road this year. And it's crazy to think about the fact that Sporting KC used to be one of the best teams in the league consistently year in, year out. That they used to be sort of the, maybe not
that
model.
long ago.
Yeah, not that long ago, and maybe they were never a model franchise. They don't have the
they certainly
cabinet
like to present themselves that way, though.
They sure do. But they were a thorn in the Sounders side for a long time. They ended the Open Cup winning streak.
Yeah.
They were in the mix every year, and they're just. I was a person who was confused as to how Peter Vermees kept his job all those years, because they really fell off of that, and it's become pretty apparent that whatever was preventing them from succeeding, maybe Peter Vermees was not super high up on the list.
Yeah, I think Vermees' time had probably come to an end, and maybe he was sort of a crutch that they could no longer afford to have.
Yeah.
But I also think you have to give him a lot of credit. This is why he, you can always argue like the reason that he was doing stuff was that he didn't leave the situation very good, but you also, at the same time, I think you have to recognize that he probably wasn't doing that all entirely by choice. Like he probably wasn't he probably wasn't not hiring people because he had the budget and he just wanted to keep it for himself. I suspect he was getting squeezed. And it's a new era in Sporting Kansas City. They have a new owner, and they're going through some growing pains right now. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, they are. I mean, it's you can't really tank at MLS. That's not really an effective strategy. But
no, it is
I can
not.
certainly see the appeal of saying like we're just going to kind of tear everything down and rebuild from the ground up. And maybe that makes sense to do. I don't know when the cupboard is stripped as bare as theirs was, but it cannot be fun to watch for their fans.
No, I cannot imagine it being a lot of fun.
And I feel really bad for Dejan Javelic, I have to say.
Yeah,
just going from the Galaxy to this dumpster fire is a real bummer for him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and that's sort of the player that gives them a puncher's chance, right? Is if he can get hot, if he can get onto a couple chances, that certainly bodes well for them. He had a goal in the game against the Galaxy, which is they actually led that game 2-0 before, so they actually were they're actually kind of storming to victory in that one. But Joveljic has had he's got 4 goals this year, being asked to do a lot.
Yeah.
Being asked to do an awful lot. And that's going to be tough. No one seems to be giving him much service. That's for sure.
No. And, let's hope that it stays that way for at least one more week.
Let's hope. Because it would definitely be, look, I mean, there's no way around it. If the Sounders drop points in this game, it's bad. Like if they want to keep pace, if they have any designs on winning the Supporters Shield, this is a game that they need to get maximum points from.
Yeah. It would be embarrassing to not win this game. And that feels crazy to say about an away game in MLS, but you've got to beat this team. These guys suck really bad, and it would be nice to see a pretty lopsided win. I think I feel like Sounders fans, and maybe this isn't fair. Maybe everybody does this, but I feel like Sounders fans, more than most fan bases, like to nitpick wins. It would be nice to get a win that nobody really feels the need to nitpick in this one.
Sure.
Pretty good to put up 3 or 4.
It would be nice to do that. Yeah. Then the Sounders obviously will come home after that, and they have 3 more home games before they go on the road for the final game before the break. But the Sounders have a good chance to head into the World Cup break in really good shape. But they absolutely, for that to happen, they got to get this win. They got to get this win.
Yeah, they got to. And it's frustrating. Like I hadn't really thought about this, but I really like if they keep up this form. I don't want to go. I don't want to take a long break.
Unfortunately, we don't have much of a choice there.
No, we don't. But it is kind of funny that the year that they build all this positive momentum out of the gate is the year that they're going to have to take 6 weeks off or whatever it is.
It is definitely kind of funny. But all right, well, I think we should probably call it a show. Don't think we have much else to discuss from this game or Sporting Kansas City. Again, if you want to get the new issue of 4, you can pre-order that on Sounder at Heart. They are $10, and I think you're going to like that if you do it. But with that said, I am Jeremiah Shan, signing off. Or I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Full Pool Wines. Thank you to our listeners. I guess we owe you guys a mailbox, a mailbag pretty soon here, don't we?
Yeah.
But we'll probably do that soon. Now that I've said it, I guess we have to. With all that said, I am Jeremiah Shan signing off for Aaron Campo and Lickett. This is Nos Audiates, part of the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network. And remember, you'll never get alone.
let's go f***ing Sounders.